So, with spring practices beginning, there are so many interesting storylines all across college football. But one that I'm sure the eyes of the college football world will be watching intently is the quarterback battle for the Texas Longhorns, because Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns desperately need a better year than they had the year before. And with the addition of the number one quarterback in his respective class, Quinn Ewers, eyes are sure to be peering in to what the Longhorns are going to do. So, we have got to break this down. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. Do you believe that Quinn Ewers will be able to be the starter for the Longhorns this season? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. I'm on my push to 15,000 subscribers, and I'd love to have you along. If you enjoy the content, like and comment down below, because those interactions are massive to content creators such as myself, and both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all that being said, let's talk about this. And in a year where the dominating storyline for the Texas Longhorns should be revolving around the offensive line, unfortunately, I don't predict that's going to be the case. And naturally so. Look, even though the most logical area to talk about in terms of Texas spring football is going to be revolving the offensive line, we as fans are not logical. We are in for the storylines that are going to be the most intriguing, the juiciest, and the juiciest storyline at the University of Texas right now revolves around that quarterback room. Because Quinn Ewers is a quarterback that has shrouded himself in intrigue, coming out of high school, being such a highly touted quarterback, foregoing his senior year and enrolling in Ohio State a year early, only to transfer back to where he was originally committed in the Texas Longhorns. There are going to be a lot of eyes wondering what he's going to look like because there's been so much hype around him since he was in high school. Now he's in a situation where he has Steve Sarkisian as his head coach. Steve Sarkisian, an offensive-minded head coach, but in a situation with the Texas Longhorns where year one didn't go quite as planned. And there are multiple reasons we can point to for this, but at the end of the day, the only thing Steve Sarkisian knows for sure is that things need to turn around sooner rather than later. Then he finds himself in the same position he found himself a year ago. A year ago at this time, Steve Sarkisian was looking at the situation in between Hudson Card and Casey Thompson, realizing there was a quarterback battle that was about to occur. Fast forward 1 year, and though there are more problems that now we know Texas has to address, Steve Sarkisian finds himself at the onset of a quarterback battle once again. This time it's Hudson Card and Quinn Ewers. And this is going to be intriguing. Quinn Ewers comes in with all the hype in the world, but Hudson Card has a year in the system, played some games last year, and had some moments last year. Though inconsistencies were the biggest downfall, this is an individual that the staff has been high on. During practices, apparently he's looked really good, and we saw some of that. We saw glimpses of that last year. And with another year in the system, with another year of understanding of the scheme around him, he's someone who could be poised to take a major step going into year two. So it's not like the Longhorns are in a situation where they're relying on Quinn Ewers. I think many expect Quinn to take the job, but I think we also need to understand that this staff was high on Hudson Card for a reason. Even though he had inconsistencies, he could be able to take that next step and really make this battle interesting, especially because he already has a deep familiarity with the system that needs to occur. At the end of the day, though, the reason this battle is going to be of so much importance is because the Texas offense is going to look to take strides. And when you look at the weapons Texas has been able to acquire, weapons are not the Longhorns' issue right now. In fact, when you look at what they have, you have Xavier Worthy, one of the top freshman receivers in all of college football last year, who looks to continue that going into his sophomore season. You get Jaleel Billingsley, the transfer out of Alabama, who is poised for a massive year with the Alabama Crimson Tide, though that didn't come to fruition. However, as I always say about the transfer portal, sometimes a change of scenery is just best for all parties involved, and hopefully for Jaleel Billingsley that's the case. At the end of the day, though, he is an incredibly talented tight end that gives the Longhorns more flexibility in that position to be able to do some things schematically and utilize him to pick apart defenses. Then also coming through the transfer portal, you get Isaiah Nayor, a green wide receiver, but one that is very, very talented, one that those who I've talked to have said he's got a really high upside. It's just about getting him the reps. Isaiah Nayor can insert himself into a situation where he can absolutely capitalize off all the attention Xavier Worthy will be getting. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does this offseason, and that's not even to mention the running back presence the Texas Longhorns have. Bijan Robinson is one of the best offensive players in the nation. He's someone who I'm really intrigued to see where he ends up in the NFL draft next year, but also Keelan Robinson, very talented running back transferring from Alabama to Texas, speed back that has the ability to hurt you out the backfield in a traditional manner, but also with these modern offenses, he can really hurt you as a receiving threat. So when you look at it, weapons are aplenty in Austin. That's not the issue. As I said at the beginning of this video, the offensive line is the biggest question the Texas Longhorns have, by far, if we're talking about offense. And if the offensive line isn't able to make strides, then ultimately what we're talking about here today will be of minor importance or of less importance than it should be. And look, Texas got in a fantastic recruiting class at that offensive line position. But at the end of the day, one of the things I consistently talk about is how difficult it is for true freshmen to play in that position. Not unheard of. We've certainly seen it before. It could absolutely happen, especially with some of the talented guys Texas got. But that's a position where guys usually take some time to mature into the situation, because one of the things we need to understand, in high school, you're playing against guys with all different athletic capabilities. You could have me lined up across from you, and that's not a good look. Whereas at the college level, there's a baseline in athleticism. You're going to have someone who is probably the best player on their team lined up across from you, as opposed to someone like myself, who those offensive linemen that the Texas Longhorns were able to get into their class would just be beating me in reps all day long and not think twice about it. In college, you don't have that. There's a baseline athleticism, and the difference in strength, speed, and technique is astronomical. Some individuals come ready. It's not unheard of. Texas is in a situation where they're going to be trying to patch up this offensive line with as many veteran guys as they can, but they may be forced into playing some young guys, which is only going to bring back more eyes on the quarterback situation, whether that's the fault of the quarterbacks or not. So Texas is an intriguing team this offseason. The Big 12 is certainly going to be interesting this year, with Brent Venables making his entrance as head coach of the Oklahoma Sooners, and all eyes on Texas wondering, are you going to be able to improve in year 2, and especially show some improvement before you go to the SEC, because that is going to be big. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking about this. That's it. See ya.